Hello, sixth graders. This is Mr. Scrow from Hillside School. Today, I am going to review Western music from ancient Greece and Roman times to about 1400 Common Era. Let's get started. The term Western refers to European traditions and social structures, and has come to include societies that were established by European immigrants, such as those in the Americas. Therefore, Western music can be defined as organized instrumentation and sound created and produced in Europe, the United States, and other societies established and shaped by European immigrants. This includes a wide variety of music, from classical music to jazz to rock and roll to pop and even country music. One of the key takeaways from this lesson today is to be able to explain the idea of Western music. In this case, the word Western does not refer to country Western TV movies or country music. The entire sixth grade music experience is centered around the music traditions created and produced in Europe, the United States, and other societies established by European immigrants. In sixth grade, your music teachers have put together lessons to help you understand the evolution of Western music. Let's review. The history of Western music is primarily rooted in Greek and Roman antiquity. In other words, music from European traditions traces all the way back to when ancient Greece and then ancient Rome dominated the Mediterranean area from around 500 before Common Era to 400 Common Era. We tend to lump Greece and Rome together because the Romans adopted many aspects of Greek culture when they conquered the areas under Greek control. Music was an important part of the lives of the ancient Greeks. Greek philosophers wrote about the power of music. The mathematician Pythagoras explored the mathematics behind musical sounds. And well-known Greek playwrights such as Sophocles and Aristophanes used music in their tragedies and comedies. The Greeks and Romans had many musical instruments, including the lyre, harp, and cornuhorn, which were used in a variety of ceremonies and festivals. The Greeks also developed different systems of music notation, such as the more general harmonia and more specific Dorian or Lydian, which were names after specific tribes and based upon unique modes. Modes are the specific ordering of musical tones and their corresponding notes. All of these helped music to thrive, and it probably would have evolved in a different way if it hadn't been for two major factors: the birth of Christianity and the fall of Rome. Sieges, famine, and internal disputes caused the ancient world to crumble, giving way to the Middle Ages. Almost all technological advances vanished when Rome fell. Without effective leaders to organize such complex societies, many people grew poor and lived in relatively isolated villages. Life was difficult, and the primary focus was on survival. Few people had the time or desire to make music. Church leaders recognized the power of music and began using it as a tool for meditation and prayer. This religious music was called plain chant, and it consisted of a single melody line in Latin, the language of the church. Because musical instruments were associated with the pagan culture of the Greeks and Romans, church leaders did not approve of their use. Therefore, all plain chant was unaccompanied vocal music, which became known as a cappella, a term that basically means, quote, in the style of the chapel. The most famous type of plain chant in this era was Gregorian chant, as sung by Gregorian monks. Gregorian monks also created one of the first standards for musical notation known as neumes or neumes, or symbols and shapes meant to represent specific pitches. These notes are the forebearers of today's musical notation systems. It wasn't until late in the medieval era that music began to get more complex than this, with the rise of polyphony, or when two or more melodies are played at the same time to create a unified sound. So, there we go. A complete review of what we have covered so far this year in 6th grade. I just defined Western music covering the ancient Greeks and Romans up through the medieval period. Today, we will begin the next period of time in European music history called the Renaissance. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to develop a fundamental and introductory understanding of the Renaissance musical time period, and explain what led people out of the Dark Ages of the medieval period to the Renaissance. The Renaissance period was an era when learning and inquiry were beginning to take hold within society over what was sometimes considered to be the dogma and mysticism of the Middle Ages. It was a rebirth. Renaissance literally translates to rebirth from Latin. It was a rebirth of ideas and art of the ancient Greeks and Romans. Society saw a rise of ingenuity, creativity, ambition, and individualism in commerce, politics, and in intellectual circles. Achievement in art, music, reading and writing, learning, philosophy, and science especially rose to an entirely new level during the Renaissance. Great artists whose names were known throughout Europe created masterpieces using new techniques and styles such as perspective, shadowing, and detailed emotion. For those of you that don't know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a popular cartoon that took hold in the late 1980s and early 90s. Named after Italian Renaissance artists, the Turtles were trained by their anthropomorphic rat sensei in the Japanese martial art of ninjutsu. Some of you may ask, is that the reason that you know so much about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Because you were into them when you were a child, Mr. Scrow? Some of you might be shocked to learn that my now 27-year-old son is the one that loved them, not me. I was already a teacher when these turtles were at the height of their popularity. Anyway, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Leonardo were named after Renaissance artists. Donatello was a famous sculptor. Raphael was known for his famous paintings. Michelangelo was known for both his painting and sculpture. In fact, he's credited with painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. And Leonardo da Vinci was known as an artist, but also as an inventor as well. On this slide, we have two important non-musical figures of the Renaissance period. Have you heard of William Shakespeare and Christopher Columbus? Talk to your teachers in the classroom about these two historical figures. William Shakespeare was an English playwright, poet, and actor, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's greatest writer of dramas. Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer and navigator who completed 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean, opening the way for European exploration and colonization of the Americas, were the first contact with the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. The prevailing reason of thought prior to the Renaissance period was that the Earth was the center of the universe. Although he was not the first to figure out heliocentrism, Galileo is the person that spread the idea around the most that the Earth, in fact, revolves around the sun, and not the other way around. He actually got into quite a lot of trouble for his way of thinking. The Renaissance was a reaction to life during the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, very few people knew how to read. Books were rare and most were written in Latin, which was not a language spoken by everyday people. The Renaissance got its start when a group of writers and scholars in Italy began to seek out the knowledge of classical Rome and Greece. These Italians looked back on ancient Greece and Rome, the period from about 400 before Common Era to 476 Common Era, as a time when literature, philosophy, art, and architecture all flourished. Medieval art, in contrast to the ancient statue you just saw on the last page, was not nearly as realistic looking. The baby in this painting looks more like a tiny man than a real baby. It's not that people forgot how to create realistic art after the Roman Empire. It's that it wasn't a priority. In the 1300s, this new group of writers and scholars began calling themselves humanists, and they referred to the time in which they were living as the Dark Ages. They thought knowledge, education, culture, and innovation was not thriving in their own times. To bring back the light, they sought out, rediscovered, and studied books written in ancient Rome and Greece. They wanted to relight the fire of an intellectual and civic life that they believed had been snuffed out since the fall of the Roman Empire. In summary, this is important, Renaissance thinkers wanted to recreate the thinking of ancient Greek and Roman times that focused on human achievement in the arts, sciences, and philosophy. This wraps up my portion of this lesson. Please follow your teacher's directions for the rest of the music period as you learn even more about how music evolved in the Renaissance period.